Challenges mount for quake and tsunami-struck Japan. A biggest ever quake that displaced the main island Honshu, followed by a giant tsunami and troubles with nuclear plants, have created enormous challenges, ones that Japanese Prime Minister Naoto Kan said represented the worst crisis since the tragedy that struck the nation at the end of World War II.
With a confirmed death toll that stood at nearly 2,800 as of Tuesday, March 15, hundreds of bodies were still being found along the shoreline in the region that received the tsunami's full force, and total fatalities expected to reach the tens of thousands. Prime Minister Khan said that 15,000 people have been rescued, with more than 15,000 others who remain missing. According to Japan's Kyoto news agency, 1,000 bodies were discovered in Miyagi's Oichika Peninsula, while another 1,000 were seen in the town of Minamisanriku, where 9,500 have been reported missing. According to the NHK news agency, some 63,000 buildings were damaged or destroyed. On Monday, the Japanese Meteorological Agency reported a 70% probability of a magnitude 7 quake in the next 3 days and continued risk of tsunamis. Worries of aftershocks, hundreds of which have been dangerous for unstable buildings and thus hampered relief efforts, have been compounded by fears of nuclear radiation.
Meanwhile, 2 days after the hydrogen explosion of a nuclear reactor in Fukushima, a second hydrogen blast occurred on Monday at the Fukushima Daiichi plant, as the government on Sunday had warned. 11 people were injured. It was also discovered that yet a third reactor's cooling system at the same plant failed, with a third explosion that occurred on Tuesday morning.
As radiation levels increased to 8,217 microsieverts per hour at the plant, or 8 times the normal exposure for a year, workers were evacuated. Concerns were further heightened because the fuel rods in this reactor, known as number 2, had been exposed to the air earlier when the water pumping system malfunctioned, increasing the possibility of a meltdown. The reactor may now be at even further risk, as officials say that approximately half the fuel rods are still exposed, and the blast may have caused damage to the reactor's containment vessel. Any resulting leaks would make the nuclear fuel rods even more difficult to cool, as well as releasing additional radiation. Following a fire that occurred in yet another reactor on Tuesday, Japan's Prime Minister Kan issued the warning that the radiation at the Fukushima plant had reached a level considered harmful to human health. As he also stated, the possibility of further radioactive leakage is heightening. He urged everyone within a 20-kilometer radius to leave immediately, with people living up to 30 kilometers away being recommended to make their homes airtight and stay indoors to avoid radiation sickness.
Prior to the third explosion, the Japanese government had requested international assistance in its attempts to stabilize the nuclear situation, and the US has sent a team of experts with 2 officials from the nation's nuclear regulatory agency, with US President Barack Obama reiterating a promise to continue to help Japan. The UN International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, is also sending expert teams in response to Japan's request for help in managing the nuclear crisis. According to France's Nuclear Safety Authority, ASN, the nuclear accidents even before the third explosion could be classified as level 5 or 6, similar to the 1979 US 3 Mile Island meltdown.
Prime Minister Khan, meanwhile, urged citizens to conserve energy and prepare for planned outages across the country. Some 210,000 people living near the power plants have been evacuated, among 590,000 that the United Nations reports now represent the total evacuees of this disaster.
As of Tuesday, 1,500 people have been scanned for radiation, with up to 160 who may have been exposed. With fears that this could turn into a Chernobyl-level disaster, many people are bracing for the possibility of a complete meltdown at the troubled Fukushima plant. Although Russian nuclear experts said on Monday that fallout from a possible nuclear disaster is unlikely to reach the nation, even in a worst-case scenario, radioactive steam from the plant could reach the Japanese capital, Tokyo, in a matter of hours.
Many survivors are still isolated or in shelters that are now home to some 600,000 evacuees, but are desperately short of water, food, blankets, and electricity as they endure extreme cold, especially at night. At least 1.4 million households have also been without water, and 1.9 million without power since Friday's Temblor. Shops throughout the northeast coast have closed due to shortages, while long queues form at those still open, as gas stations also ration their supplies. Severely limited power supplies, in part due to the crippling of nuclear energy plants, have prompted scheduled blackouts and has affected public transport in multiple prefectures, as well as Tokyo. Even hospitals are having difficulty finding fuel to power their generators.
Those still stranded have faced even more dire conditions, with people atop one building who had inscribed a huge character for water on the roof, hoping that it would be seen by rescue helicopters. In rare hope-giving news, a man who was swept 15 kilometers out to sea by the tsunami was rescued 3 days later in good condition after clinging to the roof of his house. There have also been accounts of people who managed to outpace the speeding tsunami waves on foot or by car.
With some 94 governments that have offered their assistance to Japan thus far, international rescue and aid experts have been arriving from the US, the UK, Germany, Switzerland, China, South Korea, Singapore, Australia, Mexico, New Zealand and Formosa or Taiwan. France and the Principality of Monaco joined in sending firefighters, along with a French search and rescue team of 134 personnel. Donation pledges also came from countries such as Iraq or Vietnam, Mongolia, Sri Lanka, who offered medical and rescue teams as well, and groups ranging from the UN Children's Fund or UNICEF, World Vision to US sports teams. With aid group Doctors Without Borders appealing for food, water and blankets, nations like India are sending plane loads of blankets, with Thailand also pledging a 15,000-ton shipment of rice along with financial and medical assistance. In addition, Russia is planning to redirect 6,000 megawatts of energy as well as increase a supply of natural gas to Japan.
On Friday, March 11th, the day of the disaster, Supreme Master Ching Hai sent a $20,000 donation to assist the most in need, along with her condolences and prayers, asking our association members to go offer comfort and aid to the vulnerable.
She also expressed her heartfelt gratitude for the international aid. It's deeply touching to see such loving concern and outpouring sympathy in action from all corners of the world that extend to Japan in her hour of need. My continued prayers for the Japanese people and other countries in need, with all my love and sorrow.
With thankfulness to the Japanese government as well as the governments, groups and individuals worldwide extending their care to the victims, we also thank Supreme Master Ching Hai for her timely assistance to Japan. Our prayers for the safety of the good-hearted Japanese people and the easing of such tragic events worldwide through our more conscientious and benevolent lifestyles.